Hello everyone. Today's poem is Zhou Song, 有客, a Zhou Song poem from the Book of Songs. The poems or the songs in Zhou Song basically is all anthem songs, sung in the ancestors' temple to their ancestors. And in this circumstance, this poem looks quite strange. It's a little bit unique in the Book of Songs because it's not about the praise, sacrifice to their ancestors, neither the bless to the descendants. It's about the guest. If this poem was not wrongly assigned in the Zhou Song into the category of anthem songs, this song should be sung in the ancestors' temple. And let's see who this guest and how and why this poem was about the guest rather to the ancestors or the descendants. Let's go through this very simple, straightforward poem first, and then let's try to analyze who was this guest and why this guest song was sung in the ancestors' temple. 有客有客，以白其马. We have a guest, we have a guest, and his horses is also white. So be careful with the character white, 白. So in the ancient time and even in the dialect of the Xi'an city, 白 and 薄 sounds same. So the dialects read as 北. It either means the color of white, or it either refers to the Lord or the big brother. So by this sound relation between the two meanings, so in the poems of Book of Songs time, this character always is double referring. To use the white color to represent the level of that person. He's a lord, he's the big brother, or either the other way around. But most, as far as I can see, it always used the white color to represent or to imply the person with the white clothes, with the white horse. He is the Lord. He is the Lord of Bo, in the Chinese character Bo. Okay, the first sentence is quite clear. We have a guest, and he was the most glorious and noble Lord from somewhere. 有萋有萋，敦琢其旅. Qi normally refers to the shining, colorful grassland with flowers, but here it refers to their clothing. Their clothing is shining. 有萋 means he had paid a visit to my ancestors' temple, right? So basically, this means a political affairs, alliance agreement, or some of the mutual things. 敦琢其旅. So we put all kinds of gifts of jade to these troops. So the second pair sentence is also part of the description to this Lord and his troops. He's coming to visit us, not only a person. He was with a bunch of people, of troops. So troops here not always meaning it's a military troops, but in that time when the Lord go out of his state, he always was accompanied with troops, with military troops, but the purpose is not for the military purpose. It it's most of the time it's a very friendly visit to other state. So 敦琢其旅, it use a very sophisticated word to imply they put a lot of jade as gift to those people, the visitors with the Lord. Of course, the Lord was included as well. Why it was implied that jade? Because 敦 means they do it heavily, do something heavily. 琢 is a character, is a verb used to describe to the craftsmanship on the jade. And here, in the first meaning, it means we take the troops, all the visitors as the draft jade stones. So we craft these jade stones. But here it means they gave a lot of the jade as a gift. So this is the most highest level of the rituals to the guest in the time of the Zhou dynasty. 有客宿宿, 有客信信. Our guest stayed for one night. Our guest stayed for 2 nights. So 宿 means to stay one night. 信 means to stay overnight. And someone explained this sentence as the first part, 有客宿宿, he have stayed for 2 nights because there's 2 characters of 宿. So 1 宿 represents 1 night stand. And the 有客信信 means they stayed for 4 nights. So here actually it means the guest stayed for a couple of days, many days, because the 宿宿 is not enough, and then 信信, and 信信 is not enough, so they spend many days here with us. 言授之絷, 以絷其马. And as a guest, I told to my people, I gave the rope to my people to tie up the horses. So what's that for? So here it means the host want to keep the guest, so he led his people to tie up the horses. As such, the guest cannot leave, right? Because all his horses was tied up. He cannot get away with his horses tied up. So that's the way of the Chinese hospitality in the ancient time. And even it was still quite common some 40 years ago. And these years, this hospitality changed fundamentally, but it still has some of the remains in the daily life, right? So when the host and the guest had to separate it at the very last, at the very end of a meeting, a dinner, the host would always say something, try to let his best friends to stay longer. And in some of the countryside, they even offer a lot of wines to let the guest drunk. So with the guest drunk, the guest had to stay overnight, right? So that's the hospitality. The purpose of the hospitality, the old way of the hospitality, is to keep the guest, not let the guest go away. So that's the old style. It's really hard to say these days. So just imagine, this poem is about the way of a king. So is not rude. It was regarded as the highest level of hospitality, as far as you can keep the guest with you. Don't let the guest go away. So that's the highest level of hospitality. Just remember that. Okay, let's continue. 薄言追之，左右绥之. So, in a hurry, I said, go and chase them, and your people should comfort and calm down them. So what does it mean? It means finally the guest find his way and get away, right? And the host, the king of Zhou, told his officers, his senior officers, in a hurry, go to chase my guest. They are leaving. So actually the king know very well his guest was leaving, right? But this is all the rightual things. He had to show his hurriness, that he don't want his guest go away. So even the departure date was known by both parties, the king and his guest. But until that day, the king would had his people to go to chase the guest, and then 随之 to comfort them, which means to drink them, to offer a good meal to them, and to play with them. Basically, that's the way last for a long time. So if you have the interest, you can read some of the tongue poetries. So one of the poems very touching is a poem of say goodbye, right? The two friends will be parted, and the host go some hundreds kilometers way to see his friends off. So that's the heritage from a long time ago, at least from the time, from this poem, from the time of the Zhou dynasty. So a good host will see his guest along his way back for a long way, for one day, for a couple of days, for 10 miles, for 15 miles, for hundreds of miles. So that's the way of the hospitality, the second half of the hospitality, right? Okay, the last sentence. 既有淫威，降福孔夷. So we have showed our power excessively, and we also offered, we gave the blessed fortune to our guest, so many. So the last sentence shows the focal point. So all this hospitality is not only for the sake for a friendship or for a blessing, because the king was in a senior level, the guest was in a lower level, right? So in this way, he showed his power over his guest. Also, he gave the fortune and blessed to his guest as well. So that's the mandate of the Zhou dynasty, how they're ruling over all the country. So basically, this poem is quite straightforward and simple. It's describing the guest was coming over to the host to the king of Zhou, right? With style, with white horse, with shining clothes, with a bunch of people, right? And the guest stayed for many days and nights, and the Zhou King tried his best to keep the guest to stay longer, even by tying up the horses of the guests to let the guest stay longer. And finally, at the last, the guest go back to his home, and the king of Zhou asked his people to accompany the troop of the guest for a long way, for many days, and to offer good meal, to offer nice wine, to have more entertainment along the way back. All this hospitality means the ruling over the guest, means to show the power to the guest. At the same time, it means a blessing to the guest from the king, from the Zhou King. So that's this poem talking about. So normally, the people think this guest is a very clear history figure. He is the lord from the Song state. And the Song state is the descendants of the previous dynasty. And in general speaking, it was told that the king of Zhou treat the Song state equally. So in this poem, as it put it, the lord from the Song state was a guest. Otherwise, all the people and the heaven are subordinate to the Zhou King. No matter he was a duke, a marquis, or whatsoever, the only person who was treated equally by the Zhou King was the lord of the Song state. And so this is the main reason why he was so called as a guest, because the host and a guest was mentally equal. Lord of Song state was pinpoint to someone. There are normally two sayings referring to of the Song state lord. But anyhow, I don't think it could be pinpoint from the facts or the historical literatures of today, because either of the Song lord who comes to the Zhou King, they all complies to this situation, right? So there are some 20, 30 laws of Song state in the history. Okay, this is for the Lord of the Song state. And we have another question at the very beginning. Why this poem about a guest could be categorized into the anthem songs? So if we look carefully to the last pair of sentences, we can see that this poem, this song, is sort of a report to the ancestor of the Zhou King, right? So he reported to his ancestor, the passed away Zhou Kings, that the guest is defined by King Wu, and now today I treated him as our best guest still. and I also showed him our power, our mandate to them, and I also gave a lot of fortunes to them to keep this friendship, to keep this guest as long as we could have. That's a report. So this song is an ancient song sung in the ancestor temple. Okay, that's for today. Bye-bye.